Hi, my name is Frederick. I'm one of the co-founders of Optmyzr. In today's session, I want to show you two of the more advanced features that Optmyzr users have access to. The first one is creating ads from a spreadsheet. It's a great way to take a Google spreadsheet and automatically turn it into a campaign. Very nice for retailers or anyone selling products to maintain potentially thousands of ad groups and even automatically tie those to pricing and inventory levels. And I'll also show you an example of how that same technology could be used for service companies. So for example, companies that service multiple cities and want to make ad groups and ad texts and keywords related to the combination of those services in the different cities. And then after that, I will give you a look at the bid rule engine. So the bid rule engine is a tool that we've had for a while, but we have a new version of it, and I'll show you a preview of that. So with that, let's get started and let's take a look at creating ads from a spreadsheet. The goal of the tool Create Ads from Spreadsheet is to take some data that you have in a Google spreadsheet and automatically turn it into a bunch of ad groups with relevant ad text and keywords. So you have other options as far as dynamically generating things. For example, you could do dynamic keyword insertion in ad text. You have ad customizers. But what this is going to do is going to go one step further and will dynamically generate not just keywords in ad text, or not just ad text, but will actually generate the keywords as well as the ad group name on the fly based on what's in the spreadsheet. So to make this work, you need to have a Google spreadsheet first. And some people ask me, can you give me a template of what it should look like? And the honest answer is no, we don't have a template because it can contain anything that you want. What's important is just that first row of data on the spreadsheet, these are going to be the dynamic insertions that you'll have access to. So anything that you think should be automatically inserted either in the ad group name, in the ad text, or in the keyword, you should have as a value in one of these columns. And so here we've taken an example from a car dealership where they have a couple of used cars available for sale. But this really could be any data that you want. So what we'll do here is we'll copy the URL of that Google spreadsheet, and then we'll take that into Optmyzr and get started with the script. So you'll find the script under the enhanced script section. And this happens to be a tool script, and it's the first one right there. So we'll load that up. I'm doing it in an account that I've already set up. So this corresponds to an AdWords account right here. So I'm already in the scripting section, and you can see this AdWords account contains a couple of campaigns, and these are the campaigns we're going to be populating. Anyway, so here we have the settings. So we've already created some settings for this methodology, but if you were to use this, you would come to a slightly different page that invites you to make a new setting. And so you can just go with that. Now I've got two settings, and I'll load up one of these so that I don't have to manually construct all of the ad text, and this demo will be a little bit faster. But you would do this from scratch. So the first thing you see, there's 5 steps in this process. First thing is give this a name so that you can remember what you're automating. So we'll just call this car dealership. And then that URL from the Google spreadsheet that I just copied, this is what I'm going to paste in here. So you can just paste exactly what you copied out of your address bar. That's just referencing a Google spreadsheet. In that Google spreadsheet, by the way, make sure that it is shared or owned by whichever username you're going to be using to do the automation in AdWords scripts in AdWords. Or you could make it publicly accessible. That works as well, but probably you want to share it just with the username that you're using in AdWords. So once you've done this, there's a couple of questions. So should we run this in preview mode? If you run it in preview mode, it means that no actual changes will be made. I generally put this to no, and then I just use the preview mode available from the AdWords scripting page. And then it's asking whether we should do expanded text ads. I'm going to put this to yes. If you, for some reason, still wanted to make legacy ads, you can make that no. And of course, this functionality will go away at the end of January of 2017 after Google no longer allows the creation of legacy text ads. So once you're done here, you continue next. You noticed there on my screen, there was a little pop-up. That was just making sure that I had authorization to the spreadsheet. If I didn't have authorization yet, it would have just asked me to log in with the correct username, and then that would have started working. So now this is the fun stuff. So now we're going to actually generate the ad groups. So we have to start by telling it which campaign we're going to populate. This could be an existing campaign that already has ad groups in it. but more likely this is going to be a shell campaign, which is at this point completely empty. So if I look at my setup right here, it's currently saying we're going to work on Car Dealers 2, but I also have Car Dealers 3 as a campaign. This one has no ad groups, it's completely empty. So we're actually going to use this one instead. So we're going to update the name. And then as far as the ad group name, this is where the dynamic portion comes in. So normally you would start with a blank box here, and then you see the available insertion parameters on the right hand side. So if I wanted to make one ad group for all of my cars from the same make, I would just insert make. And then what that will do is it will say, well, we have 2 cars that happen to be BMWs and 2 that happen to be Fords. So both of these cars, both of the BMWs would go into the same ad group, where the ad group name, excuse me, would be BMW. If I wanted to do one ad group for each product, I could actually combine the make with the model, and I could even combine the year. If I wanted to be absolutely certain that these were completely unique ad groups, I could even include the VIN, which is the unique identifier for each car, as part of that ad group name. So anyway, I'm going to use this. I'm going to have to set a default maximum CPC for all the new ad groups that I create. I can put in some text for a label. So I'm going to say Optmyzr ads, or you can leave that blank. And then you have access to parameter 1 and parameter 2. Now, if you don't know what param 1 and param 2 do, they're very useful. So go and research that a bit, perhaps in Google's help section. But param 1 and param 2 are kind of like dynamic keyword insertion, except they're only to be used for numerical values. And so, for example, here we're going to assign the price. So we've taken price from this right here, and we assign that to param 1. What we're going to be able to do next is use param 1 inside of our ad text. And the nice thing is, as the price point of some of these cars may change, we won't have to update the ad text. The ad text will remain the same, but we're just going to push in new values after we change the pricing of these, or the value of these numerical values. So anyway, that's what param 1 and param 2 can do. It's a nice way so that your ads don't have to be constantly re-reviewed every time you make some sort of a numerical change in the ad. So here we're just going to use param 1 for price. We're going to leave param 2 blank. A couple more questions. Should we modify existing ad groups? So this basically means if the ad group already exists, should we go and make edits to it, or should we just leave it alone? So in this case, I'm going to say go ahead and make the edits as necessary. And then the next question is about pausing other ad groups. This basically says if an ad group is no longer necessary, according to what's in the spreadsheet, should we go ahead and pause that? So I'm going to leave that at yes, which basically means we're going to do inventory management automatically with this script. So with this, I can move on to the next page, and now it's asking me to generate the ad template. So because this is an expanded text ad, you see it's the new ad format. And once again, for each of these components of the ad text, I can pull in from these parameters from the spreadsheet to dynamically construct what the ad's going to say. So for the final URL, I might want to do something more interesting and actually assign a specific landing page. So product equals, and then I can do dynamic insertion in that URL as well. Path 1 and path 2, I can also include some information here. Notice here is where I'm using param 1. So param 1 does have to have a default value, just like dynamic keyword insertion needs a default. But I'm actually pulling the default just straight off of my spreadsheet. So this means we're going to automatically show the correct price for that vehicle based on what was in the spreadsheet the last time the script ran. If I want to make multiple ads, I just add a new ad template, and then I have to make a default. So sometimes when you dynamically construct these ads, they might exceed the character limits. So for that reason, we need to have a static ad as well. If you have multiple dynamic variants, so long as at least one of them fits the character limits, we're not going to be using the default ad. So the default ad is really only used if there's not a single ad in the ad group, if we were to dynamically construct them. And then finally, we can also make keywords. So a couple of ways you can do keywords. So the simplest way would be to just combine some of these parameters together. So here we have make plus model. You can do match types on this. So as you see here, I've put a plus in front of some of these dynamic insertions, and that means make it broad match modified. It's going to put plus not in front of just the first word, but in front of every distinct word within whatever that value is. And then we do more sophisticated things even. So here we have the keyword make and model, but we also combine it with a specific destination URL, a keyword level destination URL. Here we have a double pipe. And after the second pipe, we can put in a CPC value for that keyword. So that CPC value, we happen to be pulling it from the spreadsheet. So as you notice here, we have a column where we actually specify the CPC we're willing to bid for these keywords that become generated. This next example combines both keyword level URL and a keyword level bid. And then if you wanted to do something like maybe an exact match keyword, you would just put an additional set of brackets around it. So the square brackets go all the way around it. That can even work with a single word insertion. So this may look a little bit funny with the double brackets, but this is actually going to make an exact match keyword where we're inserting whatever is in the make field. If you wanted to do a negative keyword, it's as simple as just putting the negative sign in front of the whole thing. In this case, you don't have to put it in front of every word, just like with a negative keyword, only has the minus sign at the beginning. That's exactly how you would render that here. So with that, you save it, and then we give you a piece of code you can download. Okay, so there's two options as far as downloading. You can either download this for the MCC account or for a single account. So I'm just going to grab the code for the single account. Just give me a notification. I only have to do this a single time. So here's where that code comes. So I copy it. And now I'm going to go into AdWords, and I'm going to go into the bulk operation section, and I'm going to make a new script. And that new script will contain the code that I just copied. So I'll show you how that works as soon as this page from AdWords loads here. Okay, so the AdWords page just loaded. So I'm going to remove everything in here. Make sure you start with a blank slate, and then you just copy and paste whatever was in that file that we made you download. You don't have to make any changes to this. You probably want to give it some sort of a sensible name so you can remember what this is going to be. I generally hit preview once, and then I hit the authorization, and now it's asking for a few permissions. So I'm just going to grant these. That allows the script to do all this work on your account. So we allow that, and then you're going to be ready to preview this. Now, I'm not actually going to save this because I've already installed it in my account. It happens to be this script, so let's go into this one. Again, you see the code here is the same, and now if I hit the preview button, you're going to start to see what it's doing. So there's two views here. The first one is the changes view. This is going to be a view into which new ads, which new keywords it's creating. There's also a more detailed view which comes under the logging section. And so you see that right there. So here it says we're about to work on the ad group BMW M3 2010. Tells us the ad group needs to be created. So it's working on that. And then next it'll go on to keywords, a bunch of other stuff. And in the changes view, you can see we added a label, created an ad group, added a bunch of keywords, even put in a negative keyword. Eventually we'll get to also adding the ad text. So we're going to let this process for a minute and then show you what it looks like when it's all done. All right, so the preview of the script now has completed after 1 minute and 4 seconds, and you can see the full list of everything that would be changed. So you can see for this new ad group, there's also an expanded text ad being created. And then you can see as you scroll further that it's generating additional ad groups as well. So once that's done, if you're comfortable that it's doing the right thing, you can actually go ahead and run the script, and then it's going to make these changes in your account. Now, in the beginning, I always recommend you do this in a test campaign, perhaps even a test account. As you can see, this account, I haven't put in billing information, and that's completely fine. AdWords can still do the construction of all of the ad groups in it so that you get a good sense of if it's actually doing what you expect it to. You might find out some keywords are missing, and not just because the script's not working, but just because you think of some other keyword variations that you would have liked to add. So generally kind of run this on a dummy campaign first, and then once you feel like it's ready to go and to be applied to your client's account, that's when I would run it on a live account. So the other example, and then actually let me show you then what would have come out. So the campaign section right here. So we've already gone and processed this in Car Dealers 2 in the past, And if you look at the ad groups, you can see there are 5 ad groups that have been generated. Now, one of them is paused because at one point what I did is I removed this car from the inventory. So I literally just took that line out of the spreadsheet. And then when I reran the script, because it is allowed to pause anything that's no longer necessary, it figured out, oh, we're no longer selling this product. So this automatically became paused. And then if you were to look inside of each of the ad groups, you'll notice the keywords. They will correspond to the keyword templates that we had set up, as well as the ad text will correspond to the ads that we had generated. Looks like it wants me to refresh, so we'll quickly go ahead and do that. And then we'll move on to another example for a location-based business. Okay, so here is your ad group for Ford Fiesta. So you see the variety of keywords we've added here. And do remember I ran that script in preview mode, so that's why the negative keyword doesn't show in here, even though we did have it on the list. If I had run it in live mode for this particular campaign, then that change would have showed up in here. And you can also see the ads that we have in here. So that's how that script works. Now let's take a look at another example. In this example now we're going to create ads from a spreadsheet based on a service business that operates in multiple cities and has potentially different services or different price points or some other attributes based on those services and locations. So again, I've made a spreadsheet with whatever data that I think is relevant. Could be anything I want in here, but I've decided to include the city name, the service that we're performing, the price that we're going to charge, and how quickly we can arrive at that certain to bid to customers in that specific location for that specific service. So 4 examples here, and then what I would do is come in here, make a new setting for this create ads from spreadsheet, but here I've already set it up, so I'm going to walk you through what I've set up. So I've given it the name location so I can remember which one this is for. I've copied and pasted in the URL to the Google spreadsheet. I do not want to run this in preview mode, and I'm asking to create expand the text ads. All right, so here it's asking us which campaign we're going to populate. So I'm going to populate campaign local 3. Remember, this campaign already has to exist before we can add to it. But once again, it could be an empty campaign. It just has to exist. For the ad groups, I'm going to dynamically combine the city and the service, and that'll form my ad group names. I'm going to have a default maximum CPC of $1, and I am taking 2 numerical values from my spreadsheet to assign inside my ad text. So param 1 is going to be price, param 2 is going to be the arrival time. I'm not going to modify any existing ad groups, and I will not pause ad groups that are no longer necessary. So this is more of the inventory management based system. This tells me whether I can make modifications to ad groups that already existed. So the ad template I'm going to form, again, is based on a lot of these insertion parameters that come from the spreadsheet. So when I say service in city, when it reads this first line is going to say drain cleaning in Palo Alto. That's going to be the ad text in that case for headline part 1. And so we construct that for all the different portions of the ad. You notice I can even do dynamic keyword insertion. And for the default, I'm using something from my spreadsheet. And then here's where I'm using the dynamic parameter 1 and param 2. So specifically, I can say we can be there in param 2, arrival time, minutes. So what's going to happen is it's going to automatically show the correct number of minutes before someone can arrive for that specific city and service. We're going to default to the arrival time that's in the spreadsheet now. But the nice thing is, if all of a sudden we can be in Palo Alto much quicker, we just change this to 30. And the next time the script runs, it's going to update this value. So instead of 40, it'll become 30 minutes. We can do a dynamic URL. So we can say something like city equals this. And then we can also include path 1 and path 2. And I can include multiple ad variations if I wanted to. We do have to have a default ad in case that any of the dynamically generated ones are too long. And then here for the keywords, again, we're just going to be combining city and service. But I could also add some hard-coded stuff to it. So plumbing in, and then we would insert city. Okay, so let me edit that. So plumbing in city. So now you see it's a combination of something hard-coded and something dynamically inserted. Okay, so I can save that. And once again, just download the script, put it into AdWords. Since we've already installed it, we don't have to do it again. It'll just work off of the last setting. And then if I come back to my AdWords account, to the bulk operation section for scripts, I find where I've already installed that script. And then I could preview it to make sure it's doing what I expect it to, or I could actually go ahead and run it as is, and then it'll go ahead and make all of those changes to my account. So a few minutes later, when I come back to this, we will have something that looks a bit like this. So here in the campaign local 2, we've already run it. And so you see these are the 4 ad groups that we've generated. And for example, in the ad group for Palo Alto drain cleaning, these are the 2 keywords. And then this is the 1 dynamically generated ad text that we have. Now you might want to run this script as often as once per hour. If it finds nothing to change, it's just going to leave things alone. But even if you make a small change, like you update one of the numerical values, it will push the new param values so that when a user searches for it, next time instead of seeing 30 minutes, now because you changed it to 35, that's what they're going to see. Or if you change it to 40, then they're going to see we can arrive in 40 minutes. So that's how the create ads from spreadsheet works. And then, of course, if you want to run this across multiple accounts, you can also make new settings very quickly by copying them from another account. Now I'd like to show you a preview of the new bid rule engine. So this is going to be available in your accounts soon. This is a pro level feature. Anyone who's not at the pro level, please get in touch with us and we can give you an upgrade to the pro level for about a month or so that you can take a look at whether this is a useful feature for you. But what the bid rule engine does is it allows you to automate your bidding logic that you may currently be manually applying to your accounts. So I'll show you how it works. The first question is, what are we going to be evaluating in the account? So you can do this for shopping ads through product groups, or you can do it for keywords or for ad groups. You can even do it for campaigns, which may seem a bit unusual because we don't really bid for campaigns. But what it would do is it would say, find me campaigns that meet certain conditions, and then change all of the ad group or keyword level bids for those campaigns. So that's not a fairly typical example. Something more common would be keyword level bidding. So let's show you that one. So what we're going to do now is for every keyword in this account, we're going to take a look and see if it meets certain conditions. And if so, then we're going to take some set of actions. The way you specify those conditions is simply clicking on there. So let's do a simple example, and let's say that the cost of something is greater than $50. And also that at the same time, the conversions are exactly 0. Okay, so we do something like this. Now, what are the date ranges we were looking at? Actually, let me show you that. So if you come back here, when you select cost, notice you have some options in here. So this is cost across all devices for the last 7 days at the keyword level. I could have also said just cost on mobile devices, could have changed the date range here. And this is interesting because I could say, look at the, even though I'm evaluating keywords, look at the cost of the parent ad group or the campaign that this keyword is in, or let's look at the cost of the entire account. Okay, so, but I'm just gonna do keyword level cost here. So anyway, if these conditions are met, and I could add more conditions to this if I wanted to, but if these are met, what action do I want to take? So remember, these were kind of non-converting keywords that have at least $50 of spend. So I might want to decrease my bid. So I could decrease it by a certain value, or I could also do it on a percentage basis. So let's say we decrease these by 5%. You can set a minimum and a maximum allowed bid as well. So I can do this, and this becomes my first condition. Now let's make this a little bit more sophisticated and add a secondary condition. So say that my cost was greater than 100, maybe then I want to decrease my bids by 10%. Easiest way to do this would be to duplicate this existing rule, or I can add a completely new rule to this group. So let me just duplicate, and then I can click on my existing rules, just go ahead and update these. So now if the cost is greater than 100, then I want to decrease my bids by 10 instead of 5%. Okay, so I save this, and now you can see I have 2 rules. Now let me explain how this works. For every keyword in this account, we're going to go into rule 1, see if that condition is met. If so, then make this change. And now we say proceed on to the next rule. So if the cost is greater than 50, we're going to decrease the bid by 5%, and then we're going to see if the cost is greater than 100. So if the cost of a keyword was 110, it would meet this condition, so decrease by 5%. It would also meet this condition, decrease by 10%. So that may not be desirable because now you're stacking your bid. So what if you wanted to stop executing? So instead of saying proceed to the next rule, we're going to say don't process the next rule. So now if a keyword with $110 worth of spend meets this condition, we decrease the bid by 5%. Now that's not actually ideal, right? Because $110 is actually more than 100. So this is probably the rule that we wanted to execute. So this rule should have been first. So let me drag and drop it in place. So now $110, yes, it meets these conditions, decrease the bid by 10. And then let's change this to also don't process these rules. So once that condition is met, this is done. And we move on to the next keyword. So now we evaluate the keyword with $70 of cost. That one will not meet this condition. So we'll go and evaluate the next condition. It would meet this condition. So we would make this bid change. Then the next keyword we look at maybe has $40 of cost. It does not meet this condition. It doesn't meet this condition. So we get to the end. No conditions have been met. So we don't make any bid change for that. So that's how that works. If you wanted to see what those suggestions, those new bids would look like for your account, you can click on the preview link and then we'll calculate in real time for your account what that would look like. And so you can see here, there's one keyword that meets rule number 1, no conversions after more than $50 of cost in the last 7 days. Then I can download an AdWords editor file. So then we would take this bid, which has now been decreased by 10%. And then we could apply that through the AdWords editor. If this is something I wanted to do automatically on some sort of a schedule, I could click on the automate link and then I'm going to be given a piece of code to install into AdWords. And then from there I can schedule it to run once per hour, once per day, once per week, whatever schedule you think is the right one. Okay, so let me show you a slightly more complicated rule that you could do. So let me actually just make a new group. So say for every keyword, if we had at least 10 conversions, maybe I trust the conversion rate number enough at that point to actually use it to calculate my CPC bid based on a cost per acquisition target. So rather than doing something simple like increasing or decreasing bid, I'm actually going to set my bid. Now, rather than setting it to a static value, which is not that interesting, I'm going to set it to an expression. The expression or the formula to calculate CPC based on a cost per acquisition target and a conversion rate is to multiply the conversion rate by your target cost per acquisition. So imagine that was 25. I would put this in. Again, minimum and maximum, I can set that to whatever I need. And then we click next and we save it. Okay, so now very simple rule. If I have at least 10 conversions, if I have more than 10 conversions, then calculate my CPC bid based on this formula. I can click to be done. Once again, I can preview these suggestions, and then from here on, I can automate this. So this is a starting point. Many more functionalities are going to be coming to this, but this will be in your accounts, at least for Pro Plan customers next week. Anyone who's not a Pro Plan customer and wants to try this, just shoot an email to support@optmyzr.com, and we'll be sure this gets enabled for you as well so that you can preview it for a little while to make a decision. Thank you for joining this demo. If you would like to learn more about anything I showed you or you have other questions, please feel free to reach out to support@optmyzr.com and we'll do our best to help you.